This video is for you if you tend to be triggered and then you act it out. Like maybe you're shouting or you're saying something you don't want to say or do something you don't want to do. And you kind of like know that that's coming from a trigger, but you just don't know how to like stop that behavior or like to be more mindful of not acting this trigger out. In this video, you're going to talk about how you can be even more aware of these triggers and how you can actually create space between you feeling the trigger and then acting it out, or rather having the capacity to not act it out, but just being aware of it and process it rather than acting it out. And hey, if this is the first time that we meet, I'm Jonas, and on this channel we talk about authenticity and personal growth. We provide tools and ideas that help you gain clarity, freedom, and fulfilling relationships in your life. If you haven't yet, consider subscribing. So the first thing to understand in terms of triggers is that when you're being triggered, oftentimes it does have to do with some kind of situation that you've experienced in the past, something that might have been painful, or where you feel like you've been treated unfairly, or which situation which just wasn't okay, and you're being reminded of that situation, and that's the reason why your system is like, this is not good, this is not okay, I have to like do something against it. But oftentimes the situation isn't as close to the situation that we've experienced, and it might be a completely different situation, but we still might act this out, this energy. And so there's a few ways to like look at this problem and transform this problem. So the first thing is that maybe you actually know what is the situation that like triggers you in these kind of situations, like the first situation that is kind of like acting as this like main trigger for you in new situations to like act out in this way again. Let's say your mother always accused you of like not doing certain things, which was like, maybe your mother was very dismissive of you, of what you've actually done in the household. And if your partner then, highlights something that you haven't done, you might like suddenly be way more triggered than you should be, because you're like, oh, this is my mom again, that is like not appreciating what I'm doing and only seeing the things that I'm not doing. And like you start to get into this whole cycle. And obviously it can be your whole other different story. Any kind of situation where you feel like you were treated unfairly can create such a trigger. Other situations that you might have experienced that can create a trigger in the future are things like your needs being neglected. Like you felt like you needed this, but you weren't allowed to need this, and then you like have to protect your needs like overly, or you feel like you have to hold up your boundaries really strong. Maybe if your boundaries were violated as a kid, or if you have been made fun of or ridiculed for some things, or you've been treated unfairly, or you felt like you didn't have enough, like you didn't have enough food or something, and you have to like protect that you're getting enough, and all kinds of things. And for your situation, maybe you know that situation or you don't know it, but it's just important to understand that it could be coming from some kind of situation like that. So if you're being triggered and you know the story, what you can do is you can use a tool like releasing to go back into that experience and feel that and process the emotional energy that is still stored in your system around that. I will link a video up here where you can do this kind of exercise. You can go back into this situation and transform that situation, as in like releasing, processing this emotion, such that next time you're in the same situation, you won't be as triggered. And if you can really process all of that energy, maybe you're not even triggered at all. Then this is like the fundamental method, as in like you understand what's really behind the trigger and you can change or transform that at the core. The other thing you can do is do something like meditation, or just do some kind of like internal embodiment, mindfulness exercise daily, like at least 10 to 15 minutes a day. I would recommend 20 minutes a day if you can, to really be present with your own emotions and your own internal energetic movements. Like where, like, am I feeling, what's the emotion I'm feeling, what's the feeling? Maybe I'm feeling anger, sadness, grief, or something like that. Then feeling is just some kind of internal energetic sensation. Like I have a feeling of like tightness, I have a feeling of like opening up or something. And there could even be body things that happen. Like if you're aware of like your hands suddenly going to a fist when you're getting triggered, that could also be a sign. But you're doing in the meditation, you're just sitting down and you're just noticing, what am I able to feel inside of the body? You're not trying to like understand it on a mental level. You're just taking your time to be with yourself and to develop this ability to feel more inside of yourself. like that's like the foundation to then be able to, when you're being triggered again, when you're in that situation again where you feel like there's something happening and I'm acting this trigger out, instead of doing what would be a more constructive way of dealing with the situation, then you can make yourself aware of like this movement of energy. Like suddenly when you're being triggered, usually there's like a rush of energy coming through you, or there's like anger coming up, or like your fists are going to be clenched, or you're feeling some other kind of like internal energetic reaction to that trigger. If you're aware of that and you really notice that, then you're kind of like one step ahead of acting it out. You're like, oh, I'm noticing what's coming up, and then boom, I would act it out. But when you have that little window, you can say like, okay, what if I just breathe? Like, what if I just breathe like a few seconds into that rush of energy that's coming up? That will give you this window of the ability to act constructively and act in the way you really want to act. And the more you do this kind of meditation, the more you do this kind of practice of like noticing and feeling what kind of movements are happening inside of you, the more you're going to be able to like extend this window of a choice of like, now I have the choice. I am feeling the trigger, I am feeling the energy coming up, and I'm feeling like I want to lash out, but actually I have space now. I can decide how I want to act. The more you do this meditation, the more you do this practice, the more you're going to be able to make that window longer, and through that, instead of like acting your triggers out, you can then choose how you want to act. That's one of the most powerful and also fundamental ways of like dealing with these kind of triggers inside of you that you're acting out, but you know, like, I don't want to act that out. Do this meditation and also really check out the releasing practice so you can learn to like process the triggers inside of you, and then through that, like having less of that trigger energy coming up. Another thing that you can do in that situation, if you're noticing that there's something coming up, but you feel like you don't really have the ability to just like breathe through it enough, or like you don't really have enough, you have a little bit of space, but you don't have enough space to like stop the acting it out, what you can do is like you can name what's happening. It's like, I am feeling so angry right now because of what you said, and I'm trying to like not act it out, or something like that. Like you can name the internal process that's happening in that very moment. That might still come with the triggered energy, but instead of like saying something that you know it's going to hurt the other person a lot, you're saying like, I would really like to hurt you in this moment. This is what's coming up. And you're like, in this situation, you're saying and naming what's happening instead of acting it out. So you're like one step like before fully acting it out. Maybe it still comes out angry, maybe it still comes out sad, or whatever it comes out with, or in whatever way it comes out for you. But instead of like acting it out, you're now naming it. And through that, then you still have more space, because then you can talk about it. You're not actually saying the thing that's really going to hurt the other person. You're saying the fact that you want to say something that really hurts the other person, so you're not actually saying it. That's the thing you can do if you're really like, okay, I'm about to burst, so I'd rather say this than fully bursting it out. Please let me know in the comments, what do you think, which tip will help you the most to deal with your triggers? And here's a bonus for you. Usually when you're being triggered, there's another person that you might be triggering the other person. So if you're doing this meditation of like feeling your own triggers, you can then also apply this whole thing to like, let's say the other person is triggered and they're saying something with like this intense energy, or maybe something that's really gonna hurt you, or you know, coming from that energy. What you can then do is to see, okay, what's now happening inside of my body? Because what's usually happens in these kind of situations is like, I say something, I'm triggered, you say something back, I'm even more triggered, and then back and forth, and boom, boom, boom. And we are like in a big mess. But what you can do actually to cut this circle is that if the other person says something that's triggering, you get actually the same situation then if you're the one that's the first to burst out, because you're like, now you have like a triggered reaction coming to you, and you feel yourself like there's some energy rushing out, and you're like, boom, you want to like lash out back. You can do the same thing on that too. You're like, what could if I was like able to just breathe into this for a few seconds and really like just allow yourself to like feel that whole trigger and that whole energy coming up. And if you're lucky, you're already able to like calm yourself down in that and not really acting it out. And if you're not, then you can also always revert back to like, I feel this is so mean what you're saying. I would love to like say something really mean back. This is like, I'm feeling really angry at this moment. And you're just sharing your internal experience instead of actually lashing out with the painful thing you would want to say. I really hope you got value out of this video. If you want to go deeper on these and similar kinds of topics, I'm actually launching a course called Deep Emotional Intimacy and Connection Training, where it's all about how to relate with other people, how to stay connected with yourself, how to relax in your body as you're relating with other people, be it romantically or in friendships, and you see how you can have more fulfilling relationships with other people where you're relaxed and can fully be yourself without being triggered or acting your triggers out, but being in a beautiful way of relating with other people. So if that's something that interests you, make sure to check out the link in the description below and sign up for the waiting list if it's not already launched when you're watching this video, because you will get a discount through the waiting list. And also, I would really invite you to watch some more videos on this channel, because there's so many videos on similar topics. This is the one that YouTube thinks you would like the most, and this is my most recent video. So have fun watching and have a great day. Goodbye, everyone.